Hi, I am Manoj Deshpande, a digital media PhD student at Georgia Tech. I will be presenting this paper written by myself and Dr. Brian Granko. Uh, so, the rise of generative AI technologies like ChatGPT and DALL-E has dramatically reshaped the technological landscape, marking a significant shift in both like capabilities of AI systems and their influence on the society, culture, introducing new complexities and interactions with AI. Reflecting trends in uh,
Is it on?
Hello?
My,
Is this? Yeah. Oh.
Okay, is this better? Okay, I'll just continue, assuming it's better. Uh, so reflecting trends in HCI, AI evaluation is transitioning from solely a quantitative like metrics to richer pluralistic methodologies that capture multifaceted nature of these AI technologies. Uh, okay, here. The multifaceted nature of these AI technologies. Against this like sort of backdrop, we are advocating for adopting research onion model, which is a multifaceted like sort of model for designing evaluations in general. So Saunders proposed research onion model that consists of 6 layers. The outermost layer comprises of research philosophies that shapes the fundamental beliefs of our like sort of knowledge, including positivism, which focuses solely on like quantifiable facts, or interpretivism, which emphasizes more on the subjective nature of the experiences that we have, or even pragmatism, which is like blend of both these like sort of approach, or realism, which assumes that there's an independent reality outside of our own like sort of thought. It is also important to note that there can be several other research philosophies like postmodernism or generativism from the modern, like the keynote from the morning. Uh, so the next layer in this like sort of onion is called the research approach. It basically is prompting us to think about deductive method or inductive method, basically thinking about if we want the data to tell us something or we are imposing a framework on the data. The next layer is the strategies layer, which essentially is the research methods that we want to employ for doing the research, like surveys, interviews, so on and so forth. And next is to decide if we want to use just one method or a mixed methods approach or even a multi-methods approach. Following that is the time horizon, which essentially says that you do the study once and be done with it, or do a longitudinal study, which is going to run for a bit longer. And last layer is the data collection layer, essentially, which says that, okay, this is what we are trying to do. People generally tend to jump to this layer, and we should probably like think about all the other ones before we do the study. We are arguing for adopting such a holistic framework because evaluating generative AI necessitates moving beyond the traditional like performance metrics to include more ethical implication, user-centric design, societal impacts, and nuanced human AI interaction. Also, adopting such frameworks can help us address blind spots that we researchers have when designing or evaluating such systems. And also, using such a framework can help us use mixed methods and balance quantitative and qualitative research, fostering a more multidisciplinary like approach to AI evaluation. Next, I will present a few hypothetical scenarios to illustrate how to use the research onion model in the context of co-creative generative AI drawing application. These scenarios essentially serve also as a self-reflection uh, for our previous research. So the first one, evaluating AI-assisted drawing efficiency tool. I need water. Anyway, I'm sorry. So the approach would be, since this is a positivistic sort of framework, the approach would be having a deductive methodology. And the hypothesis is that AI will enhance the quality of the drawing. For strategy, we'll be using controlled experiments with drivers like sort of artists. And the task would be to have like them sketch with and without using AI. For analysis and data collection, we might use time efficiency, precision, and errors. Thank you so much. And conduct a statistical analysis like any other like positive research in the hopes that this research will drive and give us empirical data showing that AI is potentially helpful in augmenting human creativity, or it can also provide data for driving AI tools further. The potential limitations of this like sort of view of research is that we might overly focus on the quantitative aspects, leaving the subjective creative experiences, or we might potentially like overlook the ethical issues and human-centered like human AI interaction dynamics. Moving on, scenario 2 is understanding user experience in AI assisted art, and we'll have an interpretivist research philosophy this time. The approach this time that we can take is that we'll focus more on the subjective experiences that the artists have, and we'll have inductive methodology as opposed to deductive ones, and we'll focus more on exploring emotional aspects of the creativity and so on and so forth. The strategy would involve in-depth interviews and observing the artists in the visual practice, and would involve capturing real-world interactions that they have with the AI systems. The data collection essentially would be the interview text that we gather from the artist, and the analysis would majorly be the thematic analysis that we do for identifying themes about their perceptions and so on and so forth. Again, the implication can highlight the dual role of AI in potentially enhancing or limiting AI creativity, or it can also provide guidance on how to go about designing the tools. The limitation obviously is that we have subjective bias here, it lacks generalizability, and possibly neglect the technical depth needed to address this sort of issue. Scenario 3 is when we have a pragmatist like sort of viewpoint. In this, the approach again is that we use a mixed methods approach for a triangulated evaluation of the system. The aim is to balance both technical aspect and the creative impact of the insights. The strategy might use like both user surveys, which is more positive, and something like focus group where we can understand the nuances of what's happening. The data collection again is to balance both quantitative and qualitative aspects of the study. The implications again might be to enhance the AI tools artistic efficiency and creativity, and also inform like sort of balanced design of the tool. Limitation again is that the challenge of balancing these different kinds of data, and concerns about generalizability and the selection bias. The last scenario that I have here is based from the realist like sort of perceptive perspective. Here we are trying to see and measure the ownership, authenticity, and ethics of AI collaboration. The approach would be to assess like perceptions of AI artistic collaboration, focus more on the authenticity, ownership, and so on and so forth. The strategy again here would be to use a comparative like sort of study between qualitative and quantitative analysis. The data collection again is to evaluate the artist group, get their views on ownership, authenticity, so on and so forth, get a comparative like thematic estimate of what's happening within these systems. The implications again will be able to help like drive the AI system forward. Limitation again of this system is that it can have subjective bias, and we might be overly like sort of critical about AI like sort of role, even if it is like sort of good. Again, like these four are just hypothetical scenarios, and they're just to like illustrate the point of views from different like sort of research philosophies. Thank you so much for the time.
Okay, thank you. We have time for questions. Don't forget, those of you online, you can raise your hand or you can ask the question in chat. Is there anyone in the room who has a question?
Is this online? Sorry. Oh, hello. I'm curious, is there anything you found that was unique about AI itself in applying the onion model? Or yeah, sorry, I think I'm just curious. I was reading this and going, okay, this is a great application of the onion model, but I was wondering what the unique part of the AI provided in saying we have to do something different than the way the onion model is typically applied.
So
Does that make sense?
generally, yeah, the stochasticity was the thing that was different in AI as compared to the systems that we are used to.
Yeah.
So sometimes like I feel we can't like categorize like one, like it is difficult to have like one approach, because has this variability in terms of like outcomes.
Okay.
So the same research method might like yield different responses, which
Mhm.
was the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of the same question I asked a prior speaker, but in the context of your work on the onion model. Something wonderful, by the way. Something that I asked myself every time I saw one of your cases is, how are they measuring X? How do you measure that something is more creative or that some phenomenon happened? I think to segue in your question, one of the things about AI is that some of the things you want to measure about it are hard to measure, or they're not as easy to measure as just having a function and just using mathematics, right? You have to see a
Right.
person, takes time. Doing 500 of those measurements is going to take you 2 months as opposed to, 2 hours.
Right. So especially for like measuring creativity, as from like my experience, there are a couple of like metrics we can use. One of them is called creativity support index, which gives a quantifiable like number on the product itself. The other one is called OCSM, which is more about the interaction dynamics. So we can use like metrics like that to measure what's happening. Sorry for my voice. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's all we have time for. There are a lot of creativity metrics out there too in the psychology literature that have been adopted for this kind of research as well. So it's whether the product is more creative or whether the process was more creative, whether it's just the interaction. But thank you for your
you so much.
presentation.